Sideline Squib. It's a long time coming. Steve, Andrew, what say you? This is the sideline, huh? Funny, it's my time then. Put me in right now then. Squib, 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 boy. This is the sideline, huh? Funny, it's my time then. Put me in right now then. Squib, 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 boy. This is the Squib, info stick up to your ribs. Chips be coming with that dip. Go ahead, put it to your lips. My oh my, that is delish. Victory gon' taste like this. Y'all bought that big ol' boat, but these boys built you a bridge. Sit down and take notes. If you want you a trophy.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Janis, former receiver for the Green Bay Packers. Just wanting to thank the Sideline Squib podcast listeners for subscribing, listening, and trusting them for your fantasy football advice. I hope you guys have a great season this year, and go Pack go.
Well, nice. Bringing it in hot and heavy tonight, guys.
Yeah,
I'm loving it. Andrew, getting the guests on here. It is awesome. Nice shout out coming in from the Green Bay Packers wide receiver. And guys, welcome to the Sideline Squib. We are back. We're going to have a quick little episode here. We wanted to touch on a few things. We are a month away. From the football season. And if all takes are going well with baseball, football, hockey, or not football, baseball, hockey, basketball as of right now, let's hope the NFL can stick to it and the players can really buckle down, and if they want to play football, they'll stay in the hotel or their mandated places of where they need to be. So all in all, it's going to be a challenge, and I'm looking forward to it. But Andrew, how are you, man? How'd that come about? I had no clue that was coming.
I knew you would. So Jeff Janis is. So I know we just started our listener league on the old Sleeper app and doing a little redraft thing. So a couple of our listeners were able to join by giving us a review. So it's a paid league. They're getting in for free. All of us of the Sideline Squib Hands team is paying an entry. We're covering your guys' entry. There's a handful of us that are in the middle of a draft right now for our redraft for listener league. And I thought, what better time than to drop one of our listeners, Jeff Janis's review, a live review of our podcast. So he seems to be loving it. So that's good. Everybody knows who Jeff Janis is as far as his fantasy relevance. And he won some people quite a bit of money for a month or so. So it's pretty cool. So I was super happy to be able to get him on.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I know.
Just not seeing the live one there. That's pretty sweet. Yeah. So, I mean, where are we at? There's all kind of things going on. The NFL deadline for opting out of the 2020 season is now over.
Thank God.
There is 66 players listed on the list of players that have been opted out. Anyone significant really touch home with you other than the big one there in your home city of Damian Williams?
Yeah, Damian Williams is obviously the biggest name on the list. And thanks to the Super Bowl, everyone knows who he is. But fantasy football is obviously well aware of Damian Williams. Kind of sucks for a host of reasons, obviously for the Chiefs themselves. Like as a Chiefs fan, but outside of fantasy football, I would have liked to have a stability at the running back position. But I'm not as concerned as if it was like Travis Kelce or something like that. So, yeah, he's obviously the biggest name. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is now obviously the 101 for everyone. He's not for me, but he is for a lot of people. I love it. I want him to succeed. I don't want it to get twisted into some I hate Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm ecstatic he's on the Kansas City Chiefs. I'd rather him be on the Chiefs than anybody else's team. But from a fantasy football perspective and a dynasty perspective, I've kind of staked my claim on J.K. Dobbins as well as Jonathan Taylor ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And DeAndre Swift is actually another one that I've seen some people start to come around on him, some people I really, really respect. And if he takes over that backfield, which is a very high likelihood, he could have immediate impact in 2020, a lot like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. J.K. Dobbins is still playing behind Mark Ingram, so it's going to take a little bit of time. But as far as the opt-out stuff, literally the biggest name is Damian Williams. And then you have Geronimo Allison, if he counts. You got, Marquise Goodwin, which good for him, by the way. I don't know if you know the reason he opted out. So no. Marquise Goodwin has had 2 children that have, they've lost 2 children. I'll put it that way. And they just had a baby girl. I think it's a girl. Man, I hope it's a girl because I'll feel bad. But I think they just had a baby girl She's only a couple months old, and he is like, yeah, I'm not risking that again. So good for him. And then there's obviously, from the defensive standpoint, there's actually bigger names. CJ Mosley, I think, is actually a really, really under the radar opt out when it comes to the Jets, because the Jets aren't that great to begin with. And so that defense, losing out on CJ Mosley, it was a completely different defense whenever he missed time last year. So, it could actually increase garbage time type stuff, which is not something you want to chase in fantasy football, but certainly something to keep a tab on, at least early on in the season, see how that defense stacks up, because it's not going to be very good, that's for sure.
Yeah, and staying with the Jets, Josh Doxson, not that he was going to be a name that was going to come in and steal some snaps, but, he could be there as long as
anybody can steal snaps this year.
Correct. And I believe they just cut Quincy Enunwa as well. So there's not too much going on in the New York Jets. Sorry, Abe, when you're listening, Jets fan. But the only other ones that I really see impacting a little bit is Miami. And it's Miami. That's why it's so hard to be. Both Allen Hurns and Albert Wilson are opting out of the season. So that's two players that are at least on the field 50% of the snaps for the most part. As for Preston Williams, I think he already solidified his spot as the kind of alpha dog of that team.
Tell him, let him know.
But this will then, I think, bump him a little bit forward, because now there's even less targets. Or if anything, Mike Gesicki, this really puts him into the aspect of running the seams and becoming a real pass catching tight end like we saw a little bit ago. So
and Matt Breida, I think that's his name. Breida. The fake cheetah. Yeah, he's a pass catcher. He brought in to catch passes. It certainly won't be Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard will be the goal line back. So, he's obviously going to hit his target and should increase at this point with the lack of wide receivers for Miami.
No, yeah, I agree. And either way, it's going to be a challenge for everybody. It's going to be a challenge for all owners, GMs, and everything going forward with the season and what's going on. And I've been looking for a new challenge, and that's why I'm playing Dynasty Owner Fantasy Football this season. Dynasty Owner Fantasy Football unites the fun and excitement of fantasy football with the skill and strategy of the front office. Dynasty Owner is the only way to play fantasy football with real NFL salaries. Go to dynastyowner.com/squib. Because leagues are forming now. That's dynastyowner.com/squib. And Andrew, we have our expert league coming up this Friday, I believe. Friday or Saturday, depending on what the final draft day is. And I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it, especially with the opt-outs now and the new changes and rules coming around. It's going to be very interesting as we go forward.
Yeah, for sure. And we are in the Scott Fish Bowl. We covered that pretty good when that was going as far as draft days and stuff. And the Scott Fish Bowl and this Dynasty Owner thing, two very different things. Obviously, Scott Fish Bowl is a redraft situation. It's more of a tournament style, and the Dynasty Owner is obviously, what it says, Dynasty Owner. You're dealing with contracts and all that kind of stuff. Two very different approaches, but two big things for us, because I feel like we're the small fish in those ponds. Yeah. And so I want to make sure that we do what we need to do as Silent Squid. We have a chance to show that we're relevant. We're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be consistent, and we want to make sure we put in the work. And we're gonna measure ourselves right up to the measuring stick with some of these guys that are in Dynasty Owner for sure. So it's super exciting. Hopefully here it is. Hopefully it's on Friday, because I would like to get started on a Friday and then kind of have the whole weekend to keep rolling.
No, yeah, I think so as well. I think it's going to be Friday. But that kind of takes us right into a topic we wanted to talk about. With everything going on this season, how are you going to attack the season from now on? I mean, obviously the drafts that you had recently, dynasty drafts, kind of what's going on, those plans and those game plans are already set. Are you looking for more of the steady Eddie, consistent guys this season, or are you going after like these high upside boomer bust type players if it's a single season redraft, not dynasty? Dynasty, I don't think matters. Dynasty, you move on, you take what you get, you still draft the talent. As for single season this year, what are you doing? Are you looking for upside, or even look at it in a dynasty standpoint? Who are you looking to target in trades for this season, or maybe the waiver wire, or what's going on as far as upside?
Yeah, so we've had we've had a couple discussions, randomly on these shows recently about like basically based off of ADP, how much risk are you willing to take? And baked in risk just means upside, right? Just means like, how high of a ceiling am I willing? Do I want to gamble on at the cost of a floor, a low floor, or a non-existent floor? And for most instances, I find myself pretty conservative early on in drafts, and in the late end of the drafts, I'm much more comfortable just drafting the guy that could be a league winner and cutting him 3 weeks later if I have to, as opposed to getting the guy who I'm never going to start. Like Adam Humphries is not an attractive option for me because his upside's just not there, and his floor is I'm never going to feel safe enough that he's going to outperform some of the other guys that I've already drafted ahead of him. So for me, I need guys that are just like either going to, and I'm talking later in the draft, but I want guys that at that point in the draft, I'm feeling like they could be the next, Lamar Jackson type stuff, or they could be, no one. They could be literally on the waiver wire the next couple weeks. So within reason, to put that bluntly, I'm not going to just go willy-nilly and just take the guy DFS is obviously different, but for redraft and dynasty, I'm trying to at least have a little bit of floor, a little bit of projected targets or carries, or at least have some sort of role on the team. I'm not interested in, Bolden or Rex Burkhead. Those guys aren't guys I'm targeting.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I draft pretty solid, I believe, across the same way as far as strategy goes for my strategy. I don't vary too much depending on league scores and what's going on from there. But before we jump into our sleepers our upside at each position, let's talk a little DFS. I know you just brought it up. You and I have been going. We've had some pretty good. Let's knock on wood here, but we've had some pretty good weeks.
Knock on wood if you're with me. Knock on wood if you're with me.
Weeks in and weeks out here, and shout out to Abe and Josh over at the DFS Docket, our partners in crime on the sidelinesquib.com. If you haven't checked them out, you can find them under our RSS feed anywhere you find your podcast. That is the DFS Docket. Coming up clutch with some lineups, bringing us into cash. 80% of the time in the last 2 weeks. So.
Yeah,
very nice start.
My blunder. If anybody's listening at home and plays DraftKings, I'm not for sure on FanDuel, but for sure on DraftKings, if you reserve a lineup and the games start, even if it's a late swap type scenario, if you never set a dummy lineup, or at least a lineup that you would play just in general, if you've only reserved it, once the first tip-off happens, you don't get to go in and edit even if there's players remaining. Just in case you guys are wondering, I donated like $25 yesterday. So that was cool.
Yeah, overall, it's been great. And if you guys haven't, like I said, swing over to www.sidelinesquib.com. Check us out. You got our podcast you can go back and find there. You have the DFS Docket podcast. You can find articles, rankings. You can find all the staff members. You can give us topics if you want to hear something new on the show. So swing over there and check us out. And then once the NFL season starts, we'll be jumping into our DFS articles as well as lineups as well. Another thing we have going for us. I know you and I are both stocking up on some NFL tickets for the first weekend for opening Thursday and opening Sunday, so it's pretty good. Just nailed down a golf DFS today, so overall pretty good. Another takedown.
We're a well-rounded fantasy football podcast.
Yes, another takedown into PGA gets us set up pretty nicely going into the season. So, all right, let's move on. I mean, talking upside. What do we got here? We got quarterback. Who do you have this season as an upside player at the quarterback position?
So I got this from Scott Barrett, by the way. Scott Barrett on Twitter. Super great follow if you guys aren't already following. An incredibly intelligent individual, but he worded it as like ultimate upside guys or ultimate ceiling guys essentially. But what he was referring to and how I've kind of molded this, at least on my understanding, was like who at each position, relatively speaking, has the highest of upsides, but equally as low of a floor. You could, the standard boom or bust type of guy, right? Like who is literally, but that you're drafting, not just your DFS guys, like guys that you're rossing on your team, knowing full well he could literally just tank your team, but you're willing to take that on as a risk, knowing that his upside is immense. And for me, I challenged you basically to be like, hey, build yourself a team, not necessarily ones that you would draft, but ones that you've seen that you would say, okay, those guys are like super high ceilings and no floors. So for me, I'll start you off here with the quarterback that is, I guess, polarizing, I don't know. But Drew Lock is my like high upside, absolute terrible floor. So in 5 games in 2019, speaking of floor here, in 5 games in 2019, he did not throw for over 210 yards. He only had 1 game that he threw for more than 210 yards. So there's an absolute floor for Drew Lock. But he's going to have a full offseason this year with the Broncos. He gets Jerry Jeudy. He has KJ Hamler. He got his old buddy Albert O now on the offense. Noah Fant another year forward. You have Cortland Sutton another year forward. They brought in Melvin Gordon. Like the offense is just stupid stacked at this point with unproven talent. And that's what I mean by the ceiling and the floor. KJ Hamler might be a bust. Jerry Jeudy might be a bust. I don't know. Just given those options here.
Yeah,
so
rookies.
If that's the case, then Drew Lock is going to be a bust as well. But if they are not, or if Drew Lock takes the next step forward and carries them even, or has those kind of games where it's just he's lighting it up. He has a powerful arm. He has a beautiful deep ball. He has an incredibly strong arm. So if that's the situation with KJ Hamler, if that's the situation with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, this guy is literally the limit with Drew Lock, especially given the offensive weapons that they've built around him. So it's a risk.
No, I love it. I love it. I just hate that it's in the AFC West because you're right. I mean, if that talent can come together and he can buckle down, it's there. That ceiling is there. I went a little different way with the thought process because I went with Josh Allen in Buffalo. He has a floor because of his rushing abilities. But I think in my mind for this position, I can say that thought process maybe for the rest went that way. But as for this position, I mean, Josh Allen, rookie year was a QB 21, last year QB 6. All right. It's kind of hard to say, okay, he has more in the tank from a QB 6 with guys like Lamar and Russ and Patty Mahomes, and Kyler Murray or Carson Wentz or whoever it may be. But he only had in his career so far in the NFL, which is better than it was in college, is 56% completion percentage. He now adds Stephon Diggs, which opens up another array of possibilities. Not saying that's going to make him more accurate, but it could easily get the ball into Stephon Diggs' hands more often and quicker releases, giving him the opportunity to be that playmaker he is, at least racking up those yards, maybe getting that confidence built up in a young quarterback like Josh Allen. And he could easily hit double-digit rushing touchdowns.
He's the team leader in rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, what do you have? 8, 9, 9 and 7, something like that.
Yeah.
He could easily hit double digits, and that just adds another. That adds that another aspect to his game, and that's kind of what I was looking at with this one with his upside. If he could improve on his completion percentage and his accuracy, the sky's the limit for this guy. I mean, Buffalo's defense is kind of what holds them together, but they still have to score a lot of points. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you run. He doesn't need to be winning all these games in the fantasy to be the QB1 in fantasy, and that's kind of what I see in him. That's what I see in Buffalo. They're going to be playing from behind. They're in that tough. Well, they were in a tough division. Now they could win the division potentially, and there's going to be a lot of passing going on, a lot of running going on, and I think Josh Allen with his upside could break the top 3 potentially this season.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, he'll be a popular DFS guy for in certain weeks just because of that rushing floor and hopefully an opportunity to exploit some defenses with Stephon Diggs and John Brown, which are very similar players, just different ages. But I think you're right. I think there should be an increase in fantasy production from Josh Allen just because of Stephon Diggs. Maybe not from a efficiency standpoint, but the yak ability of Stephon Diggs, the ability to get open of Stephon Diggs, those kind of things should allow for a little bit more of a yardage total from a passing standpoint. And then, maybe that affords the offense to scheme a little differently because, they're not going to be facing as stacked of boxes given the rushing ability of Josh Allen now to at least respect Stephon Diggs. So I don't hate that pick as far as a ceiling standpoint. His floor, I think, is a little higher than a lot of quarterbacks, but I don't think there's that low floors when it comes to quarterbacks, and that's why that's a position you can always wait on unless you're getting like literally Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson type players, because the floor, just how the NFL plays now, is as long as they don't absolutely tank like a Baker Mayfield situation would have been a good example here, because if he throws 4 interceptions or takes 6 sacks, then it's a whole different thing.
Like a Gardner Minshew
or Haskett, and Minshew was my 1B here, because I think going into the season there's so much unknown. Like, yeah, it was nice last year, and if they're able to replicate that again and improve on that, then the ceiling is immense. But if it's one hit wonder, if it's a flash in the pan, then you're going to be left holding the bag if you got a lot of shares of Gardner Minshew, which I don't, and that's not necessarily a dig at him. It's just more along the lines of like, I just like the upside of some other guys that are going similar places as him.
No, I'm there. I like it. Gardner Minshew's a great one. I should have went that way instead. But for the rest of my guys, I kind of went with that same thing, because like I'm going right back to Miami for my running back and Jordan Howard. He's all upside. Now he's facing an uphill battle at the same time, because they are going to be playing from behind. They are going to have, depending on if it's Fitzpatrick or if it's Tua or what's going to happen, they're going to be young. They're going to be striving, but they're in that division that's going to be, it's wide open right now with Tom Brady leaving, which is scary to say that it's wide open. But, while he was the main running back in Chicago, he was the RB 10, 14, and 20 as he was getting fade out with Tariq Cohen. Went to Philly, obviously split time, had Miles Sanders in his pocket, didn't do too much. Now goes to Miami. He has Matt Breida, who I believe will take the passing downs. Well, should take the passing downs.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, Jordan Howard is the most efficient third down running back from 3 yards or shorter behind only Gurley and Zeke in their careers. So if that's the case, he's getting those goal line carries. He's getting the 10 and in, 5 and in, he's going to get those carries. And if he can catch wind like he did in Chicago in the first 2 seasons, where he has those games where he can get those chunks of 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 8 on first down, he's putting himself in a better position, because if he gets 7 to 8 yards on his first carry, they're not bringing in Breida to do exactly what he is the best in the league at, is getting those 3 yards. So, I think for me, upside, definitely Jordan Howard at the running back position. They're going to need to score a lot of points. They're going to be on the field a lot. And if he can start getting, he could easily do 20 for 80 every game, essentially.
Yeah.
And then he throws in a touchdown or two, and you're talking,
Well, didn't he have a 4 touchdown game against the Packers, or was it someone else that was?
I don't know who it was against, but
last year, and he wasn't terrible in Philadelphia.
No, he's such an under the radar guy.
He got injured, and then like you said, he had Miles Sanders breathing back behind his back. Everyone in Philly wanted. I shouldn't say everyone. There was definitely some Jordan Howards like truthers in Philly even. So that better than anybody. But for me, I think that's a good pick, because you're right. Given his ADP, you're getting him in the 6th round, and he could literally be an RB1 every single week just based on touchdowns. And it's hard to predict touchdowns, which is why we're talking about this whole situation with ceilings and all that kind of stuff. Running back, I think, is outside of the elite, right? Outside of the top 10 or even less than that, it's so tough to manage what ceilings could be for certain guys and what floors could be for certain guys, just based on depth charts. It starts to get murky for some people, or the offense isn't that good, or they're older. So running back is a tough position to focus in on ceiling, and that's why they go so early, because people try to get as much of that early on as they can, try to get as much known commodity as possible outside of rookies and their upside. So I wanted to stay away from rookies, by the way. I know I didn't give you that rule. I think everyone is a ceiling and floor when it comes to a rookie. So it's we all think we know what we're talking about when it comes to evaluating rookies, but we don't know. Everyone has Darrell Henderson and Christian Kirk and all those guys too. So for me, running back, and I went in the direction of the reason the floor is so low is the depth chart. So Raheem Mostert is my ceiling floor running back, and because they run the ball so effectively and so efficiently, if he is the lead dog 12 out of 16 weeks, he is absolutely a ceiling running back. He's absolutely can crush it and be this year's Austin Eckler. Essentially, he can week in, week out be the leading running back from fantasy standpoint just on volume and efficiency alone. Or Tevin Coleman can take his job, or he gets a timeshare with 15 other running backs that they like to do. So it's like there is absolutely that risk with Raheem Mostert. One thing that the Ball Boss girls, right? The Kate is
and
I can't think of her handle right now. Anyways, Kate and Michelle, but Kate is the one who was talking about this with Raheem Mostert. They love Raheem Mostert. We all know that. But the point is people want to talk about Raheem Mostert not taking 130. This was her quote, her tweet just a few minutes ago. Raheem Mostert, everyone wants to talk about how he's never had 137 carries in a season. But they want to ignore the fact that Austin Eckler hasn't had more than 132. So it's like literally, it's very much biased in that situation where you want to ignore certain things and confirmation bias. You want to ignore certain things for certain players and highlight certain things for other players. It's absolutely something that's happening in the Twitter community and fantasy football community when it comes to Raheem Mostert, which makes him polarizing, which makes him a situation where, his ceiling could be, league winner type stuff. Like every single week, he could be the RB1, or he could be a, high end RB3 every week.
No, yeah. No, I don't know the context of that tweet or text or whatever it was, but just hearing it roll out here, it's like, yes, you're going to compare their rushing attempts, but you didn't need, we didn't jump into their receiving abilities, their stuff like that. So much to your point, it's just a confirmation of figuring out who you like, and Raheem Mostert is definitely one of those guys. You could walk in, and there can be 6 guys in a running back room tomorrow in San Fran, and you never know which way they're going to go. It was weird when they brought Tevin Coleman in. So definitely weird. As for wide receiver, I think there's so many, and I've talked about mine before, so I'm just going to glance over them and kind of let you go. But mine's Mike Williams. It's there. To me, it's the epitome of being there. I love him. I like what he does. We all know what he is. KA's on the other side. He had 10 touchdowns. He had 1,000 yards. He puts it together. Bam. I mean, the ceiling's there. Both quarterbacks have a huge arm now. It's not Phillip Rivers. For me, the ceiling's there with Mike Williams, and he could be a top receiver. But I'm just going to pass on to you. I've talked too much about Mike Williams going, last couple episodes.
I was like, there was one thing that was going to happen today whenever you were going to bring out this list. It was either going to be Alexander Madison or it was going to be Mike Williams. I
stayed away from Madison.
I knew it was going to be one of those two people. No, and Mike Williams is a great pick too because, he is a boomer bust wide receiver when it comes to even from a season to season standpoint.
70 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then no catches next 4 games.
I see, and that's funny because it's like people keep bringing up Mike Williams and acting like Keenan Allen isn't still there. Keenan Allen's still there. You still have Austin Eckler. They have Hunter Henry, but nobody wants to talk about Tyrod Taylor. Everyone wants to pretend like Tyrod Taylor is not going to be one throwing the ball. If it's not Tyrod Taylor, it's Justin Herbert. But I'm going to tell you right now, for at least the first quarter to half of the season, it's going to be Tyrod Taylor, and that's a baked-in value whenever you get him in the last pick of your draft. Like honestly, one quarterback leagues, no one's taking Tyrod Taylor. You're not taking him anyone ahead of like someone that you're guaranteed is going to have 16 games. So people sleeping on Tyrod Taylor are going to be missing out. I'm telling you right now. You've talked about Mike Williams. I've talked about Tyrod Taylor. We both are in the AFC West as far as fandom, and we have talked about the Broncos and the Chargers. I don't know how unbiased we can possibly be.
Yeah, I'm nervous because the AFC West is going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun because we're going to be rooting for our teams, but then know that the fantasy value is on the Chargers and the Broncos, which is going to be it's going to be fun. The whole AFC West.
Every game 50-40, I'm good with that. Every AFC West game's 50-40, I'm good. Like Mahomes gets himself his little 6 touchdowns, and we're good. We're moving on. For me, I think like this list was created for type of guy. Will Fuller is absolutely the ceiling floor guy, the boomer bust. There's no question about it. I mean, Will Fuller is the definition of if he stays healthy type of guy. So in splits and in-game splits from 2017, 2019, I'll rattle this off for you. The in split is Deshaun Watson played, and the out of split is obviously the games Deshaun Watson didn't play. So it was a 22-game split with Deshaun Watson and 6-game split without Deshaun Watson. In games that Deshaun Watson played, 14.73 points in PPR. He had 4.27 receptions, nearly 0.64 touchdowns a game. He had almost 7 targets and 66 yards for a total of 236 in PPR points, 68 catches, 10 touchdowns, 100 targets, and over 1,000 yards in 22 games.
And for the most part, he's a flyer. Most people aren't starting him week in and week out. So those are
exactly like the per game split right there is ridiculous. A 14-point floor, essentially. That's his average in those 22 games. It's not a super small sample size in 22 games. That's pretty good and over a 3 year time frame. In the games without Deshaun Watson, he had 4.9 PPR points per game, 2.5 catches for around no touchdowns in any of the games that Deshaun Watson didn't play. And that's a eye-opening stat there. Obviously 24 yards a game and just under 5 targets a game without Deshaun Watson. So if they both stay healthy, which they should both stay healthy, right? Will Fuller can't injure his hamstring again, right? Like, please, like, honestly, like if that happens, he might be done. But seriously, the first 6 weeks of the year when he's healthy and good to go and 100% energy, this is the time to start Will Fuller. So Will Fuller is absolutely the definition of ceiling and floor and boom or bust, because that's by definition what he's brought to the table so far in his NFL career. If he plays a whole season, similar to Mike Williams, if he plays a whole season, puts it all together in 1 year, man, that's he's very, very talented with a very, very talented quarterback and no one else to compete really with targets. Everyone else is their underneath guy, the chain mover type thing. Will Fuller will be the big play guy for the Houston Texans.
So what a perfect time. Just quick glancing at it. 2016, 14 games. 2017, 10 games. 2018, 7 games. 2019, 11 games. Quick math that puts it around 10 games that Will Fuller averages. All right. Thanks to our sponsor over at Thrive Fantasy app. What do you say Will Fuller puts up? Over or under 10 games played this season?
10 games played is probably a good number to set it at. Because what you're suggesting is that he played all of the games or the full games of all 10 of those games, which doesn't happen either. No. He could play one snap of that game.
Correct.
And that hamstring can flare up. So for me, I will take the over of 10 games just because I think he grits it out and at least becomes a distraction or a decoy. They don't have the option of DeAndre Hopkins anymore. So they have to have someone at least to take, if he's able to suit up, they're going to have to put him out there just to at least take some pressure off of some of the other guys. So for me, it's a pretty easy over, but it could absolutely be, a 5-game season for Will Fuller if something terrible happens, which we never want that to happen. We want to see what these guys can do fully healthy, and we draft accordingly. We don't want to get in our own way and assume injury.
Oh yeah. Well, quick word from Thrive.
Hey guys, I wanted to take a second and talk about our sponsor, Thrive Fantasy, the up-and-coming fantasy sports app where you can take your prop bets into the DFS style. It's a pretty sweet little thing, so make sure you guys head over to thrivefantasy.com or check out their app. Use promo code SQUIB, that's SQUIB, when you sign up today, and you'll receive an instant $20 match on your first deposit of $20 or more. You can download the Thrive Fantasy app at the App Store or on the Play Store by visiting their website at www.thrivefantasy.com. Sign up to prop up today.
Yes, I'm definitely looking forward to some prop bets on there as well. So if you haven't done that, if you missed it, swing over, check out Thrive Fantasy app. You can go to the website as well. Use code SQUIB. They'll match up to $20 to your first deposit. Man, it's just one of those. It's going to be one of those seasons. The prop bets are going to be big. I think a lot of people are going to be jumping in and out. And Joey Pa, I agree with you. I think on a per game basis, highest percentage of being wide receiver 1 weeks. It's taking out. Let's take out the top talent receivers that are always wide receiver ones, like the Michael Thomases and stuff like that. I'll bet you they're up there. So
yeah, I agree with that. And Fuller and Cooks are great best ball options, because if Fuller goes down, then it's Cooks. If Cooks goes down, Fuller. There's what. Someone's catching the football from Deshaun Watson. I'm telling you.
So what's Bill O'Brien doing there?
He doesn't know.
They're just going. You got Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, Kenny Stills. Besides maybe the height and weight of those guys, they're not much different as types of wide receivers. I mean, they're just going to run it down the field? It's not like they have a tight end to come underneath. So you can almost see if David Johnson can stay healthy. That's another sneaky play here because they just going to or Duke Johnson, either one of them. You're going to run them. You're going to run the receivers.
Depth charts, man. Duke Johnson can't get out of a depth chart, man. Jesus,
yeah,
Cleveland and he's smashed down because the guy can't get out of a depth chart.
It's gonna be an interesting one there. So, moving on to tight end, since we just got done talking about good old Darren Fells possibly being the leading target
in 2020. Everyone is a possibility. Yes. We don't know right now. We don't know. And we're joking, but like seriously, that's something that we're going to run into. DFS is going to be absolutely crazy on a week-to-week basis when it comes to guys all of a sudden not being able to play, and the ownership, what that's going to do to people that are unable to get them out of their lineups in time. Like that's going to be, or it's just going to be nuts. So, but anyways, we're a dynasty football podcast. We're going to stick to it, but 2020 is going to be an adventure roller coaster for sure.
So who do you got at tight end as a big time upside tight end? Wrap us up here.
For me, I'm just going to go into the well and tell you Tyler Higbee. I know everyone on Twitter is super high on Tyler Higbee, and that's all fine and dandy. It's not going to matter. But when we're week 8, and I'm telling you, I told you so, and I'm taking victory laps, sorry. It's the one guy for sure that I've faded in every single draft, and I'll continue to fade. The guy is a blocking tight end. They paid him a lot of money to be a blocking tight end. Gerald Everett is the head coach's guy. He's the more athletic tight end. He's going to score more points than Tyler Higbee. But in the event that I'm wrong, which I've been wrong before, in that event, and Tyler Higbee is able to replicate what he did the last 5 weeks of the year, he's absolutely the ceiling guy, considering no one else could even get close to those kind of numbers, the kind of production that Tyler Higbee put up the last 5 weeks of the year. Very, very simply, Tyler Higbee is both the most polarizing and the most ceiling floor-dependent tight end being drafted today without question.
I like that. And just on cue there. Right on cue, Joey Pa. That is my guy, the Herndon. Herndon. That is my upside tight end. I loved him coming in. Was a top 10 tight end rookie season. Had great connection and just he fell into the Adam Gase trap. He got hurt, didn't play, fell into it. Let's see, losing Doxton, cutting Quincy Enunwa. Who knows what's left? Sam Darnold likes going to Chris Herndon. He's their guy in the seam. He's their guy in the seams. He's their big red zone threat. That's who they have. I mean, Jamison Crowder isn't much. You got Robbie Anderson left. Josh Doxson was brought in to take Robbie Anderson's role of kind of that bigger receiver. There's no one else left. I mean, it's still the Jets. They're going to be down almost every game. And Chris Herndon's a guy who can just gobble up, they can just gobble up those receivers, bringing in Denzel Mims. Right. that could be, he's going to come in and play right away. But
I think he's super talented. I do think he's super talented. Well, that's a pump the brakes a bit on the New York Jets offense, just bringing in a wide receiver out of the draft and making them super relevant right out of the gates. I'm going to have to see it to believe it type of guy. I'm going to need to wait on that for 2020.
Yeah. But overall for the tight end, I'm in on Chris Herndon. I've been in on Chris Herndon. This is his third season now. So it's about that bubble of when tight ends break out. I've been sitting on guys like Chris Herndon, Ian Thomas, Mike Gesicki. These guys are all just piling up on my taxi squad or my benches, depending on where they're at. So I'm definitely interested to see where that takes and where the Jets offense can run with Adam Gase, and if he can get out of his own head and kind of let Sam Darnold be Sam Darnold and where he's at. So,
yeah, buddy, I'm with you. I'm full steam ahead on the old Herndon dog. Buddy Oath on Twitter and found him. And obviously, we met on the 16-team league that you and I met in. He and I have been on Chris Herndon since 2000, obviously since the beginning of last year, this time last year, and we were left holding the bag for sure last year. So we were all on board with, we just got to get through the first couple weeks, man. He'll be ready to go. And then the first practice that he's back, he does it again and hurts himself again. Very, very tilting situation with Chris Herndon. But if he stays healthy, which is the clause with all these guys essentially, if he stays healthy, could absolutely be a ceiling type of player for sure.
Yes, I agree. And I didn't think we could do it. I know we had a time limit of 10:15 here, Eastern time, to try to get us off so you can get to work.
Yes, sir.
So glad we got to run through a few of our upside players or everything. If you guys have any more questions, by all means, reach out to us. Let us know. If you haven't, swing over to our website, www.sidelinesquib.com. There's a section to ask questions that you want to hear on the podcast. There's questions that we can reach back out to you as well. You can get in touch with any of the staff, the articles, the writers, anyone you want. Swing over to our website, sidelinesquib.com. We have shirts, we have hats, we have sweatshirts, stickers, anything you guys need. Just hit us up. We'll let you know. We'll work with you. We'll get you some sort of discount going forward. We're not doing this for the money. We're doing this for fun. So swing over, let us know. If there's anything you guys need, let us know. And again, on that website, you can also check out as well our last sponsor, TrophySmack.com. Go get your trophy. Get ready for the league. It's going to happen. Get your trophy ready. Use code SQUIB. Get yourself a $60 championship ring for free. And go check it out because they have some pretty cool grills now. Some championship grills. Some Paul Wall championship grills.
Because in 2006 again.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, my parting shot today will always be, until this thing is all over with, wear a mask, stay safe, wash your hands, stop being nasty, and be a nice person. Like, we had a fantasy football community situation this last week with a terrible person who apparently has been doing this for a while now and got finally ousted. I'm not going to name his name. Everyone knows who I'm talking about over at Fantasy Pros. There are some really, really good dudes at Fantasy Pros. He wasn't a part of it. Glad he's gone. And I hope that, as a community and as a society, we can band together and, continue to oust that situation. Those type of people don't belong in our community, and we want to kind of get rid of it. It's not something we are in any way condone. So for that, and on a positive note, go Chiefs.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you guys next week on the Sideline Squib.
Sideline Squib. It's a long time coming. Steve, Andrew, what say you? This is the sideline, yeah. Funny, it's my time then. Put me in right now then. Squib, boy. This is the sideline, Funny, it's my time then. Yeah. Put me in right now then. Squib, boy. This is the Squib. Info stick up to your ribs. Chips be coming with that dip. Go ahead, put it to